All right, well, let's get started. So, welcome everybody to another Montessori Lives, Conversations with Notable Montessorians. And this evening, we're very blessed to have with us Gill Lewis, who is pedagogical manager at Amiga in Victoria. They're just in Victoria at the moment, is that right?
We have one centre in South Australia, so they are building in South Australia, but it's only those two at the moment.
Yeah. Well, welcome, Gil. Let's start with your Montessori story. How did you discover Montessori?
So I discovered Montessori in England, in Yorkshire. I had a son quite late in life, and we enrolled him in a Montessori school, in a Montessori nursery. So that was my first exposure to Montessori. Had heard nothing about it, had a previous career in something totally different. And then I became quite intrigued when I used to drop him off and looking at all these materials. So I did the assistance course. Very quickly then started work at the centre as a volunteer and then did my Montessori training. So that's how I began in Montessori. So I have to thank my son for my career since then, I suppose, because he's the one that led the way.
And how did you get to where you are now?
So when I began as an assistant, and very quickly I became a room leader in England. Then I think I applied for 453 with Amanda Berg, Max's mum, who then we were called Mallenby. Amiga was called Mallenby. So they sponsored me and I came over in 2010, set up a school for them and began working with them. And I was with them to 2016. And then I actually left Montessori and went into mainstream, if you like, childcare, where I found the crossover between Montessori and childcare was actually quite close. All you had to do is actually bring some of the resources in, and it aligned perfectly with the EYLF and the practices and the principles. I was there for 3 years, and then I came back into Amiga, into Montessori.
Why did you come back? What was it like leaving? I mean, did you?
It was terrifying to begin with to go into mainstream and to be totally play based. But then it was quite enlightening because then I brought in materials, but also you could see that okay, they may not be learning through the spindle box, but they're learning through loose parts. So a lot of the objectives of Montessori actually aligned with the practice of a childcare centre. And it enabled you to bring Montessori in to a more play-based setting through different materials. They may not have been as structured as Montessori, but the actual learning did align as well.
Yeah. What was the reaction of the other educators in those
We,
mainstream?
Oh, they were very much for it because then they could see how the children were engaged, how calm the rooms were. And actually, the setting that I was in, we had quite a few behaviorals and how it changed those behaviorals and settled those behaviors. But also then it enabled me to bring we had a child that had very complex needs and we actually had a swing in the classroom which settled the child. But then if once the child was settled, then he would come and do Montessori activities. So it did align, which showed me then that actually, okay, we have our Montessori structure and our curriculum, but it doesn't mean that we have to not bring in certain play base, not bring in certain theories like do a bit of Steiner in the classroom where it's exploration or do a bit of creativity in the classroom, but it all does overlap and it can all marry and support each other.
So it sounds like, if you've really got a handle of the essence of Montessori, then you can really do Montessori.
Anywhere.
Mm. Do you think that the multi-age structure is really crucial to be able to do?
Yes, I do, because then you're bringing in Vygotsky, aren't you? You're more knowledgeable of it. And I think if you've got the structure, the different age range in the classroom, it's the older children teach the younger children, and it's all about role modeling and connecting.
Yeah.
So you've got this graded age of resources that the child are being exposed to, because like it gives more diversity in the classroom and directness. It's like learning isn't linear.
Yeah.
Children will learn at their own pace. Some children will be more forward than others, and that graded age exposes them. It gives more motives within the classroom. So I'm a great believer in the multi-ages, even in Nido and younger. I believe the multi-age works in them for them as well.
That must have been such an interesting experiment, really, to do Montessori in a traditional setting. What was it that brought you back to Montessori and to Amiga? What have you most loved about being a Montessori educator?
I think I missed, though I was practicing Montessori, I really do miss the essence of Montessori. I personally like order, and the order in the structure I thrive in. I like to know predictability. I like to know what my routine is going to be. Doesn't mean that I cannot be flexible, because we all have to be flexible, but I do like the structure of the Montessori classroom and the order. I think it's like, even if us as adults, it gives us security and a sense of autonomy and connectiveness, just like it does the children.
Yeah. Can I ask uh, what took you away from Montessori? Like, what are some of the challenges that you've had as a Montessori educator? Were there any challenges that contributed to you leaving?
Um, there wasn't really any challenges. Um, I think the challenges are everywhere. The ratios everywhere. The paperwork you have to do is everywhere, and the expectation of the role, regardless of whether you're in a Montessori classroom or mainstream childcare, whether it's sessional kinder or long day care, is still the same. I think it's what you know. And I think you have to have a passion for Montessori. You have to understand it. You have to understand how the curriculum cross-links across all areas. You have to understand how the objectives, the aims, link with the EYLF, and how it actually works and how to support a child. I don't think I had a challenge. I think I was quite just curious as well. I wanted to know what it was like, because you know that like Montessori is not very well recognized here, especially when it comes to assessment and rating. So I was very curious to why it's not recognized. Why are we not getting the recognition that a Montessori classroom deserves? Why? And that enabled me to see that. What is the difference? In actual fact, there isn't a lot of differences, I don't believe. Because often our expectation exceeds the EYLF and the civic seekers' expectations. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions about Montessori, that we do not follow the child, that we are either too structured or not structured enough. And there isn't a lot of difference in mainstream childcare. It's very, very similar to me.
Is there anything at all that you don't love about Montessori that you think you would prefer in the traditional play-based system?
No, I think we need to keep evolving as Montessorians. I think sometimes we can be too static, and that is like the only challenge. Oh, sorry, the only challenge I find is that people that are educated or get their Montessori diploma from different RTOs, like you have AMI. I was London Montessori trained, so slightly the presentations can be different, but the outcomes are the same. And I think it's understanding and being flexible enough to tweak or alter a presentation, as long as the child's meeting the outcomes, long as the child is learning and gaining the understanding and developing. I think sometimes we can be too anal about what the presentation has to be. It has to be correct. It has to be perfect. But then, are you truly following the needs of the child? Because children learn differently, and children will take different things from a presentation. And shouldn't we really recognize that as well?
Mm,
So that I do find quite challenging.
yeah. So there's this, debate, I guess, in Montessori about whether it's about the materials, presenting the materials, or is it really about the spirit of the teacher and the relationship with the child and being able to observe and see the child who is not yet there.
Yeah.
Um, that kind of duality, I think you are speaking to now, and I think where do you think that comes from? Do you think
I
that
think
has a
some
lot of do you think that has an impact on what you were saying about Montessori not being more widely recognized?
possibly, because I get quite astounded at how many people, you say you work at Montessori. Well, what's Montessori? They don't really know. But is it that we now I've lost my train of thought, sorry. Is it that we need to understand that children are individuals, and this marvelous, wonderful curriculum that Montessori developed scientifically. So a lot of her, like, it was an evolving thing. Do we still need to let it evolve as children change? Because children needs have changed quite drastically from 100 years ago.
Yeah,
Their exposure to the world is far greater now than it was 100 years ago. So don't we still need to evolve and look at the child and scientifically see what their needs are and be able to recognize those needs and adapt the curriculum to meet those needs?
yeah. So what do you think are some ways that Montessori might need to be updated to better fit the modern world and not that the child has changed, but there
For
are definitely
Montessori,
new stresses on children that weren't there in Montessori's day. So children nowadays tend to be more live in their brainstem more, is right? They're more anxious because of the screens, two parents working,
mm,
a lot of the stimuli that are constantly there, lack of nature play, poor nutrition, those kinds of things, I think are changing childhood in some ways. And I've read that puberty is happening earlier and earlier, due to changes in nutrition. Do you think that there are ways that Montessori needs to be updated to better fit the modern changes in the modern world and the child?
I think so. I think we could introduce more digital platforms into the classroom because children are being exposed to that. Though I do not agree with young children being exposed to Facebook and on all this, but I think there needs to be able to be a safe place for that and showcase what Montessori classrooms and children authentic experiences are. Highlight the research and outcomes that support Montessori effectiveness, develop critical thinking. I think we all need to have more better critical thinking, which is in the EYLF, and emotional intelligence. We are, especially at Amiga at the moment, we're seeing a lot of behaviorals. But so we are trying to go back to how do you build resilience? Because at the moment, children seem to lack resilience, and that probably comes down to the fact both parents work. A lot of children come into childcare quite early on in their life nowadays, and also the speed and because of exposure to media and things like that.
Mm,
Um, so we are seeing a lot of that, but I think sometimes we need to then go back to ground about connectedness, connecting with children, actually listening to children, actually having time with children. I think even in a Montessori classroom, sometimes we get very caught up in the day running of it and the routine of the set, and we sometimes can forget the child. But I think then that comes back down to the understanding of the educator, how to emotionally connect with children as well.
mm. I guess what you're saying is it gets back to that fundamental need in all human beings for belonging and
Mm,
significance. And it's that connection that's possibly the counter to that anxiety and that alienation that we see in a lot of modern world, the modern children.
Yeah. If you think, I mean, if I think about my child, I didn't know what a problem was until I was 6, 7, maybe even older. But children nowadays seem to be, even as young as 4, they say, oh, I'm bored, or I'm stressed, or I have a problem.
Mm.
So it's coming. So maybe it's the reality of life is hitting them a lot younger nowadays. And do we need to cushion that, or do we need to support that? That's a great question. How do we support the emotional intelligence of children when they're being exposed to things so early on?
So what have you found are some ways to do that? How do you build in connection at Amiga?
So what we build in, so it's very important. We feel that the foundation is actually the family. You have to build a strong connection with the family. If you have a strong connection with the family, the child's going to see that. If if the child knows that the parents trust you, the child's more likely to trust you. So it's actually about not just listening to the child, but actually taking on board the family as well and incorporating it. So actually go back to those community bases of everybody has a voice within the centre. Yes, we follow Montessori, but also I think then you've got to make parents aware of what Montessori is. Do they really understand what Montessori is? And are they going to take on the value of Montessori and the beliefs of Montessori, or are they just using you as a daycare? Because then that brings in another lot of problems. If they don't have an understanding of Montessori, if you're trying to teach this child Montessori and develop their 3 levels of obedience and their work cycle and all this, if the parents has no idea, if the parents can't support that, then it can be sometimes an uphill struggle.
I want to play devil's advocate for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Mega is a for-profit chain.
Yeah.
There's a lot of flurry on the media at the moment about profit in early childhood education. Do you think that for-profit is in conflict with good Montessori? Does it allow you to be able to build in that connection, which doesn't have a monetary value as such, um, in a for-profit center?
I don't think it comes down to whether it's a profit or non-profit. I think it comes down to practice and understanding Montessori and connectiveness. It comes down to the educators and the systems that are in place. Whether you are in term Montessori, long daycare Montessori, it's down to your practice and your understanding, I think, of Montessori. If you've got that nurturing environment, I think your nurturing environment, your understanding and knowing how to follow the child is the important, because that's what builds your connections. So it really doesn't matter whether it's long daycare or short term. I think it comes down to not the educator necessarily, not the gender, but actually the internal person, whether, so with all the media recently, I don't believe that is particularly a gender issue. I think it's particularly an innate something in somebody's person. It's what they are. It comes down to that nature nurture. We are what we are, but how environment can mold us, but innately we are what we are. So that would be whether you're in long daycare or term Montessori or non-for-profit. It is the people that are in there and their understanding and their passion for Montessori, which will reflect the program. And that is what guides it, because every Montessori classroom, though you have the same materials, you will have a different culture within that environment. You will have the class will have a different speed, the class will have a different vibe. And that comes down to the educators that are in the classroom, the children that are in the classroom, and the families that are in that classroom. You can't, it's not Aldi. Not every Montessori classroom is going to be the same. Not every Montessori centre is going to be the same, because you have to bring in personal perspectives and personal beliefs. And I think it comes down to your personal beliefs and how you interpret Montessori.
Mm. I like that as a tagline. It's Amiga, not Aldi.
Yeah, it's not Aldi.
So, well, to build on that, you use the A word, authentic.
Yeah.
So, what is authentic Montessori, to open a can of worms?
I would like to know that, because what is authentic? Because that will depend where you are trained. I believe I
AMI
was
training, right? That's the
well,
authentic.
you've got AMI training, but I was trained by London Montessori Institute, which, yes, the activities are the same, but they're slightly different. Your binomial and trinomial cube are a clear understanding of that. I was taught how to lay them out in the layers. And the Three Kings, do you know the Three Kings story?
Mm,
Where the solid cube is the king, and the knights are all the multicolored ones that surround them. But other people was where they lined it out in colors.
mm,
Does it really matter how you do it, as long as the end product is the same, as long as you're meeting the Montessori aims and objective, and the child is learning and the child is growing and it's supporting their needs? I think so. Does that mean because I do it that I'm not authentic Montessori, even though I have a Montessori qualification that took me 4 years to get? Um,
mm,
so, yes, I mean, I think for Montessori to grow, we have to all accept each other and support each other and develop. Maria Montessori created Montessori as a scientific method. Well, if it's a scientific method, isn't it a method that's continually growing and evolving?
mm,
And does that make it less Montessori if it's growing and evolving?
mm. Yeah, it's a great question. Um, do you think that long daycare makes it more difficult to do authentic Montessori today? What are the advantages and disadvantages of long daycare?
So I think the disadvantages is the time frames. So especially around the 3 hour work cycle. If you want a block of uninterrupted 3 hour work cycle, you're not going to really get it in long daycare. But the child is going to be exposed to Montessori for a longer period of time throughout that day. The only conflict I found, since especially, is like you have teachers come in and say, well, we have to do EYLF. So Montessori takes the side. So Montessori, when I first came back to Amiga, it was like Montessori's in the morning, EYLF's in the afternoon. And like I was trying to get them to understand, well, EYLF is Montessori, Montessori is EYLF. It's all combined. It is the same. They should be exposed to Montessori since the time they walk in to the time they go home.
Mm,
Why do you have to do it different? Why do you have to program, but you have to program just for the outcomes, when the outcomes actually meet the Montessori aims and objectives? They marry up quite perfectly. And we actually created a cheat sheet for our educators, where it aligned every activity, the Montessori outcomes, and it linked to the EYLF, and it linked to the being, belonging, and becoming. So to show them that it all aligns, we don't have to. So no, I don't believe long daycare makes it less authentic. I think then that comes down to the understanding of the educators, what Montessori is. And is it teacher directed, or are you following the child's lead? Because even in a secret, it says you have to follow the child's lead. It's exactly the same in Montessori. So no, I don't think it does dilute the program. Do we have challenges around time? If you want a complete 3-hour cycle for that child to go through the ebb and flow of the work cycle, possibly, but then they are being exposed to it to the rest of the day. So no, I don't think, I think we just have to evolve with the expectations and the needs of parents. Because most parents, like you said, Mark, most parents work. They aren't able to pick their child up, their 3-year-old child up at lunchtime, or have their 4-year-old child come 4.5 days a week, which is what I began in Montessori. I began in term time, where the 4-year-olds come 4.5 days a week. 3-year-olds just did Monday to Thursday in the morning and went home. We have to evolve, and we have to meet the needs of the families. And so, no, I don't think it does. And, you know, have an impact on authentic Montessori. I think that the more the impact is the fact that we have so many people working in the industry, the Montessori classroom, that are not formally Montessori trained. And that is where it comes down. Then you have to build their understanding on Montessori and their expectations. It's when the staff don't know the curriculum and how the curriculum links and how we are supposed to follow the child, because sometimes I see that it's the educators that lead the child, not the child leading the educator. So it comes down to that. It comes down to your understanding on the theoretical perspective of Montessori and how you implement the program.
I guess you're describing where it all started, right? At Cafe in Rome, which was long day care for working parents.
Yeah.
Who needed that. So what I hear you saying is that, authentic Montessori, it's not about the materials. It's really about the attitude and understanding of
and the
the child
practice
in the teacher. And yeah. So what do you think is the secret of the transformation of the adult? How does a good training program communicate that, bring that out in a teacher? It's really, I guess, really challenging to, Montessori said that in order to be effective as an educator, we need to look at our own baggage,
inner self.
right?
Yeah.
But it's really hard to do for people who don't want to or not ready to look at their baggage, their emotional stuff, right? So how do you do that in an effective way in a training program?
That is quite hard. I think it is developing their understanding on theory, but not being too theoretical, because sometimes if you're too theoretical, it will switch them off. But I think you have to ignite passion and understanding of how the equipment works. I mean, my first excitement came in Montessori was through the maths materials. I loved maths at school, but I hated the fact I had to sit there and be instructed. Then all of a sudden I was exposed in a Montessori classroom to all these materials, especially around division and multiplication, which made so much sense. It made sense to me, and it made it so easy. And I think once educators understand how to connect and how easy Montessori is, how it teaches from that concrete to that abstract form, then it can ignite passion. But I think staff need to be there for the right reasons as well. I think with COVID, when we went through COVID, we lost a lot of knowledge from the industry as well. And then we've got these new people coming in that are starting afresh, and we have to ignite them. How we do that, I'm not sure. And I think, again, that comes down to the individual. But I think it's about really supporting them, giving them all the tools. So like at MEGA, when I came on board, we actually created modules. We created modules for all educators and actually went through modules. We then created step-by-steps to make it easy for them. And then we created all videos. So last year we created over 500 videos, which they have access to, so that they have the materials there to support. We also, which is technically not, we also put a calendar in which exposed all the educators to every single materials, so that they would actually present throughout the whole curriculum to the children and to each other, so that they develop skills, in the hope that if they know what they're doing and they're securing what they're doing, it will ignite passion for them.
So rather than sending educators away to be trained, you're bringing the training to the centres and
Into the centres, yes.
making it an integral part of their workday practice.
Yes.
Mm. Don't you have to sit in front of the trainer and watch them move the beads, though, to be authentically trained?
Well, then that comes down to authentic. So I'm formally trained. So does that mean I can't train other people? Can I not share my knowledge? Isn't sharing knowledge training, whether it's formal or informal? Aren't we then training? We did it where, so a lot of it is where we support the ed leaders. So we formally present to the ed leaders and go through the modules. Then they would filter it down. We personally in Amiga, we are very hands-on, especially in head office, and we go into each centre and we will be in the rooms supporting learning, supporting presentations, assisting where we're needed to help them develop their Montessori within the centres. Because even though you can have a formal qualification, which we have found, was it 2 years ago when there was quite a shortage in the industry, we did bring people from abroad that had formal qualifications. Some of them had AMI qualifications, but they still needed support in how to present activities throughout the whole curriculum, because we found that people will sometimes they will present what's familiar to them and just stay in that pocket, but not go out to the external, not go, like they may do language, they may do the sandpaper letters, they may do pink series, blue series, but they would not get to the green series, or they may do those early maths, but they won't be doing multiplication or division. So it's about, and we found it's like children, even us as adults, we need repetition. We need to practice for it to become embedded, just the same as children do. So it's like, if we don't not continuously exposing ourselves to the whole curriculum, we forget, which I actually found as a train, when we came to do the videos, and I thought, oh gosh, I haven't done multiplication with children for a long time. I had to refresh it for myself. So it's about being exposed. So I think, yes, the hands-on.
I found that too. Like in my training, I think I was sick on the day they did the flat bead frame, the golden bead frame, and for somehow I missed on the catch up as well, and so it was years before I actually presented that material in the classroom because it just was unfamiliar, and so I kind of subconsciously avoided it for
Yeah.
years until I realized, I need this. Um, it sounds like what you're developing is really an industrial model of training. So I think, that I was being a bit sarcastic earlier, but that model of sitting in front of the trainer, watching the beads move, it may be very effective, but it's not scalable. And so we can't train masses of Montessori teachers using that method because um, it's very labor intensive and it's
It
not
is.
really an industrial model. But it sounds like what you're doing is kind of creating this model that's more scalable.
Yeah, yeah, we do. A lot of the videos are now on. We use Employment Hero, so they're on Employment Hero, and educators can access them. And we even say that even in the classroom, if you're going to present to a child, watch the video with the child
Mm.
and then present it, because then the child's getting also the visual as well as the hands-on,
Yeah.
which technically is not authentic Montessori.
Yeah.
So, but is it more a modern, sorry, is it a more modern approach to Montessori? And that's another wormhole, isn't it? Does Montessori become modern? Does it, or do we have to stay authentic? Olive, shut up. Sorry.
Talking to your dog,
Yeah, it's barking.
not your husband.
No, no.
What do you think is the book that all educators should read? What about new educators who are just coming into Montessori? What should they read first?
So I always found Montessori's her own books very flowery and quite hard to get through. But I, as a young educator, loved Basic Montessori by David Getman,
Mm.
which outlines all the activities, and it's very simple to read, and it gives you a little bit of theory behind it without being overpowering. So I love Basic Montessori, but also I love, because I the Do Not Disturb by Deborah Jackson, and I think it's on page 75. It actually explores in Montessori, and it talks about Montessori and how we shouldn't be disturbing children. Because I find, you said to me, is there a challenge? I do find a challenge of people not disturbing children. You're disturbing children, or children disturbing children, and educators understanding why it's so important not to disturb. And this book really explained that really well. So
Just
they are my two go-to books, actually.
yeah. You talked about it earlier, but the question why Montessori is not more widely available and accepted and known about in this country and other countries. But why do you think that is? It has so many answers for so many problems, not just in education, but in society in general. Why do you think more people don't know about Montessori?
I think Montessori can be quite protective of their own community and stay in their little pockets, um, without. And I think also because you have pockets of Montessori and nobody joins or has a big voice or joins together, um, the voice isn't very loud. I think Montessorians and each company need to be able to collaborate more. I think we need to interconnect more and become a bigger group, if you like, and not just individual pockets. And then maybe with that, our voice will be heard a little bit more, hopefully. I think we need to promote Montessori more. We need to Montessorians need to be able to say, yes, this is a great education, and this actually meets the EYLF. This meets their sequence come. We are good. We are doing great things within our companies. We are teaching children. We're teaching them about, if you think about Montessori, the curriculum, she was talking about sustainability and about cultural connectiveness and diversity 150 years ago, where it's a very prominent thing in the EYLF now. But we've already been doing it for so long. So I think we need to be able to shout and celebrate Montessori and be more out there and outspoken about it.
Does Amiga do any commercials?
We have just starting to. So we've just starting to put our things on our buses, but we're just starting to do more promotional videos and actually messages. And we're actually connecting more to our families. I think it's more been about the in the classroom. Now we're deciding, no, we need to focus also outside the classroom, and that's on our communities, and it will start with our families.
Mm. What about TV commercials? Any of those on the horizon, maybe?
Um, I think they're going to look into it, possibly. Yeah, we did used to. I think about 5 years ago, they had one commercial that went out,
Mm.
but it didn't run for very long. But I think we do. I think we need to do a lot more media. Sylvia Araton's assisting greatly with that, isn't she? She's
Yeah.
doing a lot more media, especially on the news and things. So she's actually a really good advocate for Montessori. But I think we need to all get better at things like that, blowing our own trumpet, so to speak.
Yeah. Gil, how long have you been involved with Montessori now?
So my son's 26, so I've been in Montessori 24, 25 years.
Wow. And how have you maintained that work-life balance that keeps you in it, keeps you going so long?
I think if you have a passion and you love what you do, you just do it. Work life. I'm probably very bad at work life balance because I'm so passionate. My work, it's at home. It's in the workplace. My life revolves around Montessori more than Montessori revolves around my life, if you like.
Mm.
And I think that's the key. If you're passionate about something and you love what you're doing, it's actually not work. It's not a chore. It's not work. And I think that's what we need to ignite in educators.
Mm. What advice would you have for young educators who are coming in to the Montessori world?
I think come in, be very open. Don't come in with preconceived ideas as well about that it's either too structured or it's adult led. I think you need to come out in with an open mind and actually learn and listen and evolve and continually learn. I think probably in any education based or even in any job, you have to continually evolve
Mm.
and grow.
So if we are to evolve Montessori and grow it, is there a danger that we could lose authenticity? So I guess what I'm asking is who should have ultimate authority over the Montessori curriculum to make sure that as it evolves and as teachers experiment with it, that we don't bring in things to the classroom that um,
Filter it down.
dilute Montessori.
I think you have to have a sort of governing body, but I think it needs to come from multi-level. So I don't believe it should just be AMI. I think you could have the London Institute there. You could have different. I think you have to grow and to be rich and diverse, and you have to have multiple voices come in. I think if you keep the essence of Montessori, which is her curriculum and her activities and her direct and indirect aims, I think we can grow and develop and but keep the core of Montessori.
Sounds like you're describing MACD, um, which really is, as far as I'm aware, the only body in the world that brings together the leaders of all the major organizations together to talk about things like standards um,
Mm,
and minimum standards that we need to keep authenticity.
yeah.
Do you think MACD has an important role to play in the world in Montessori, or do you see that evolving to other organizations?
I think it can evolve into other organizations. I think it can. It's like anything, as long as it's used for the correct reason and the core values are there.
Mm.
The core values and the innovation is there, and the the um, the voice of Montessori is there. Then I don't think we can go wrong. I think we just need to make sure that yes, she created this amazing curriculum, but she did it scientifically. So it has to evolve, but it has to keep the core. You still keep the structure, but you still develop it, but you still keep those basic Montessori aims and objectives that lead the program.
Gill, I'd like to open it up and ask if any people here listening would like to ask questions of you.
Yeah, sure.
Anybody have a question or a comment for Gill?
I'll just let Gill know. I met Stella and at the what's her name?
Talat.
Talat at the Montessori Positive Discipline session in Western Australia. Delightful. Stella did take a couple of copies of the book that's available, Montessori and EYLF2, that goes systematically through the EYLF2 and explains how typical Montessori practice meets that. So I just thought I'd mention that to you in case you weren't aware, that resource.
Oh, no, because I think I also got it when I met you at the award ceremony.
Oh, you might have, yes. Yeah.
Cool.
Any other comments?
Yeah.
Sarah, did you want to say something?
Yes, sorry. I was trying to unmute myself. We're finding that with more and more children who are coming through with our enrolments, children with high needs and with learning difficulties. And there's been a real dilemma of balancing those children's needs that have been in many instances diagnosed or they're undiagnosed, but the directors, you can really pin it quite quickly. And it's that balance of that child that's roaming around or running around and who's disengaged, and you're trying to work through your Montessori curriculum. Have you got any tips as to how we can just settle them, how we can re-engage them? Because once you do it, it works well, but we're finding more and more we've got more aides coming in to help these children. Sometimes the aides coming in for an hour of a session, depending whether they're getting funding or not, which we actually find a bit disruptive because they have to take them out and then bring them back, and the aide's not doing Montessori either. Any tips on what you can suggest? Because
so
you're dealing with it.
Yeah, we've just done a 3-month, we aligned with Sylvia, and we've just done a wellbeing behaviour guidance plan and strategies for our team, and we went through all this with them. So we've tried to do where it's a unified approach. So it's about making a connection to that child, actually finding out what those child's needs are, but having a clear scenario structure to deal with it. So everybody comes from the same page, and it's not just the educators, but also the families. So it's very much about getting families on board. But then it's also then identifying, do you need to grade up the Montessori or grade down? Do you need to alter it to fit for that child? And also, does that child need to have some times out of the classroom? We at MEGA do follow a very strict routine where there is definitely, we don't do indoor, outdoor, where the children have time inside, but we would have times like Talat Centre at Madingley, we've actually put a sensory room in. So children would go to the sensory room, especially if they're feeling overloaded. So they'd go to a sensory room to have that time to collect themselves. But we found it's going to be really consistent boundaries, and it comes back to that freedom within boundaries of Montessori's and a consistent approach, but it's very much about connecting to the child and connecting to the family. But as you say, there is so many diverse, and how do you handle within a classroom if you've got 5 neurodiverse children with your other children? And I think it's about identifying needs, individual needs, and having to adapt to them. Because if you can't support their individual needs, you won't be able to settle them into the classroom. And if you can't identify their needs, how do you then cater to the other children's identical needs? Because your time will be taken up with the children with the diverse needs, because they will be controlling the classroom, and you will never get a normalized classroom in that regard. So that is something we are working on quite greatly at the moment. We've just put it in place now because we did find, and that was contributing also to educators' burnout, and why we were also losing educators within rooms. So it's about a consistent approach, but also getting families. It's very important to get families and identifying the needs of that children, but allowing them time out of the classroom when they're sensory overloaded to go to a sensory room just to calm down.
I'd like to add to that, Gill, by showing you and everyone this. This is from a positive discipline. Can you see that PDF? So this is from a positive discipline manual, and it shows the attachment cycle. And so what it's showing is that when there's a need, a child becomes aroused, and if that need is met, then they go back to a relaxed state, right? Now, when that need is not met because the parent's too busy working, or because they get a screen shoved in their face, or because the parent doesn't have good parenting skills and doesn't, or they're in a daycare center where there are not enough educators, and so they're crying in a corner. So if that need is not met, then there's emotional distress, and that need just becomes increased. And that produces this anxiety, heightened anxiety level, and it leads to mistrust, insecurity, and an insecure attachment. Whereas if those needs are met, then that leads to a basic sense of trust in the world and a feeling of security. So I really like this diagram as well, because it shows that, Montessori's idea about how to get children, how to deal with misbehavior or deviations, as she called them, was to get them concentrating on the materials, right? But what this shows is that ability to concentrate actually depends on many other skills that are developed through that attachment cycle. So a basic trust in the world, causal thinking, conscience development, ability to delay gratification, relationship skills, and so on. All of that comes from what you were saying about connection, that basic connection with a trusted adult. And that's what concentration is built on. So if you don't have those basic skills and a sense of security, it's hard for children to concentrate and focus on the materials. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree, because that comes down back to Bowlby's theory of its secure attachments. And it also comes back to those 3 levels of will and obedience. You have to, for the first level, you have to follow the child. The child has to trust you totally that you've got their best interests before they will even go to the second level, which is where they may follow you sometimes. And then the third level is where they actually trust you completely. They will follow your lead on everything. But it begins with that trust, that attachment, and that begins very early on in that Nido classroom, in that 0 to 1.
So in many cases, it might be that you deal with those deviations by just putting aside the materials and just sitting down with the child and making that connection and finding out what interests them. Listening for a cue somewhere about, what is it that would excite this child? Is it an interest in, I don't know, mosquitoes or something like that, or trains? that's going to really ignite their interest. But you've got to find out what it is for that child. You can't just grab a material off the shelf and present it as if that will automatically inspire them.
And that comes down to adapting the curriculum. But is that adaptation of the curriculum? Is that going away from authentic Montessori? But then are you then just what Maria Montessori said, you are totally following the needs of the child?
Oh, thank you, Sarah Jane. Great question.
I've just put in the chat the link to the Montessori for Inclusion organisation. So that organisation, it's a medical organisation, Montessori medical organisation. But Lucette Boyd has done the training from there, and she came to the conference to give a bit of a talk about some of the ideas that you can use in a classroom for specific needs. We probably should get Lucette on at some point.
Yeah,
But,
we've had her on.
That organisation you may find helpful too, might have some helpful resources or trainings as well, Sarah.
And as we live in a world where there is a lot more diverse needs, does Montessori need to evolve and create a curriculum or support package within the curriculum for these children to move forward?
Good point.
Gill, it's been fascinating talking to you. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and we could talk for hours, I'm sure. So we'll have to get you back another time, I think. But thank you for your time this evening, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. You've been really good for my first ever Zoom.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks, everybody, for another Montessori Live.
Just a quickie, if anyone's looking for a career change and you want to get out of the classroom and go and do something else, our principal has resigned. So if you're looking for a principalship job, Melbourne Montessori College is looking for someone, and it's on Seek, I've just found out.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So just in case anyone's thinking,
we
I
hope
want to
you
get
get a
out of the
good
classroom, I
one.
want to do something else. So there's a job vacancy there.
Thanks,
You're
Sarah
not thinking
Jane.
of taking it, Sarah?
I've done it in the past, and I'm going to just be very happy with what I'm doing at the moment.
Well, very diplomatically said.
Yeah.
Sometimes
thank
it's
you,
very
Mark,
hard
for
to
that.
take the teacher out the person, isn't it?
Yeah. And I've been back teaching, and it's just a lot less stressful, and I've really enjoyed it. And it's that with really what you've been talking about, and with what Mark always talks about, it's just being back with the child, and I think that recenters you, and it's really good for one, I think, just to go back into the classroom after a while of doing admin.
Good on you.
It's not about
Children are
me.
joyful.
Yeah, they are.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank
Good night.
you.